Are you having trouble growing grass under trees? Well, in this video, we're going to show you how to grow grass under large trees like this and small ones. All right, so what are your first thoughts here, Jared?
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, an absolutely beautiful oak tree.
I know. I love a mature tree. I think sometimes they can cause some challenges, but the benefits are just, they're not replaceable.
We love trees. I think it shocks people sometimes to find out that we do, because they frame a house. They can be the focal point of a landscape. They can be a lot of things,
Yeah.
very positive things.
So what's your first thought here? Like, what do we need to do to this tree immediately to help grow grass underneath it?
Well, I think it's important to define what it's taking from the grass. That's the limiting factor. They're both plants. They both want water. They both want nutrition. But I think people would be surprised to find out that the thing that it's depriving the turf of most is light. And a lot of it has to do with this low growth.
Yeah. Yeah, I picked this tree on purpose because it was such a healthy tree, but the limbs are so low on it. I think some homeowners think like, oh, well, my grass, I can see the grass, you know, so it must be getting light. But in the reality is throughout the day, there's very few chances for it to get direct sunlight.
Yep, and limbing it up will increase the angle amount that sun can get up underneath there and prolong and make for more light up under that tree during different parts of the day.
I've got a homeowner that's got a tree about the same size. They just had pruned by an arborist. And I think it'll just give a good example of what this tree can look like.
Of course. Oh, great. Let's do it.
All right, let's go. All right, so Jared, this is just a great example where someone's come in and really pruned this thing up. And some people might say like, wow, this is high.
Yeah.
But what's it done?
Well, the great part about this tree is it's healthy and it's beautiful and it's large, even larger than the one we were just standing in front of.
Yeah.
And it tells me that this has been here longer. It tells me that this lawn underneath it's been here longer. We've seen the progression over time. But what I also see is many different pruning scars over time where this tree has had the canopy lifted. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow more light on here, which is going to be fundamental for turf growth over time.
Right, and this particular homeowner has Bermuda grass,
Yeah.
which is really the most sun-loving turf. And
It is.
for the most part, throughout this lawn, it's really done well. We picked the spot that's had the most struggle, so
Yeah.
I would assume that the way the house sits, and at some point this is getting the least amount of sunlight.
Sure. Well, north is actually directly behind you.
Oh, there you
and, you know, so as the sun comes up in the morning, east, you know, goes over. At the moment that we're recording, it's kind of directly overhead, but you can already tell that as it goes down towards that way until it gets behind the house, now we're going to have lots of great sunlight here. And because the limbs are higher now here, when that sun comes up in the morning, they're getting a lot more morning light here as well. So hopefully even with as high as they've gone, they're going to get a little bit of that afternoon light come through here as well.
So we are still in Georgia, but
Yes.
It looks like we're on a beach a little bit right here.
Yeah.
What's going on here? What has the homeowner done?
They've been awesome is what they've done. They're top dressing a little bit, and what that does, obviously the clay is a little tough, and you can see some stolons growing in this lawn. That's one of the beautiful parts about Bermuda grass, and as they're growing over the top, doing a little top dressing helps to normalize the surface and level it out, but it also gives something for those stolons to tack to as it happens as well.
Yeah, it just makes it basically easier for the grass to fill back in.
Exactly.
And just to maintain.
Yeah.
And so this was just recently done, and I think it's going to really help this area survive.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think the next step for a lawn like this, if this continued to progress, would be just talking about a different type of turf grass. Would you agree?
Yeah, or bed expansion, depending on what the homeowner wants to do. We love to grow turf grass. I love growing grass way more than the average bear.
Yeah.
But I specifically like growing grass where those intangible needs are met, those non-negotiables. And when it comes to Bermuda grass, light's a non-negotiable.
Yeah. So next best grass for the metro Atlanta area would be?
Zoysia.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
So I think if the client really wants to have turf grass, zoysia would be the next best option.
Yeah.
And then I agree with you, expanding the bed space, really no matter what, probably making this a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
But ground covers, there's great ground covers.
Absolutely.
Like Asian jasmine, big blue lirio, mondo grass.
You know, it's funny. It's probably a lot like the color teal on the walls in somebody's house, but I still have like ground ivies. I still have it seems like very 1990s,
yes.
but I love ground ivies.
I feel like that's
too.
really coming back. And so there's really other ways to get that green that you get from a lawn,
Yeah.
but also have it be in shape.
Of course.
And have these beautiful trees.
Yeah, well, it's picking your battles. It's choosing to fight the right battle, and that's how you win in a landscape.
Yeah. So let's go look at a little tree.
Okay,
Something a
let's
little
do
bit
it.
smaller.
Yeah.
We looked at these big ones. Let's look at something small.
Sounds good.
All right, great. So Jared, this is a much smaller tree than what we just came from, right?
Well, we're kind of bookending, as it were. You know, we started off with kind of a middle-sized tree, and then we got into a much larger one, and now we're kind of at the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, but I think it's so important because this is the stage to start pruning your trees properly. Because if you start now, you can avoid a ton of damage. Like we saw at the previous home, like if we can keep them up, you know, there's less likely of that. Now, it's probably going to happen eventually over time, right? This is a large growing oak tree, 50 plus feet, probably mature. But I wanted to show you this tree and talk about a little bit, like what do we need to do to this today?
Well, I think that one of the things that people worry about is, oh, well, I don't want to injure my tree starting to prune. This tree actually tells a great story, and you can tell that there's previous pruning scars here where probably the nursery that this tree came from, or the original operation that grew it, was training it to be a tree, you know, from very small, and continuing to do that, removing advantageous limbs, removing even some of the larger, lower growing ones to continue to train this canopy high is only going to prolong the amount of really good light that's getting to the Bermuda grass underneath it.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to point out, which is sometimes it's not about taking the whole limb off to the trunk of the tree. You know, just doing minor prunes on a small tree like this can make a huge difference. Like this one right here, like just going in and cutting that minor, it's going to take this low hanging limb off, but keep the main branch.
Well, and there's so many opportunities too, even though there's, in a tree this size, you can even thin a little bit. And I see a couple of water spouts and stuff, things that are actually really healthy to remove within the tree itself that are also going to help contribute to the health of the tree and hopefully the health of the turf grass beneath it.
Yeah, and I think if you have any real questions about pruning and you're nervous, these are obviously, as they get bigger, very expensive trees to replace. Like always consult with an arborist.
Of course,
you know, arborists know exactly how to properly prune a tree. So
exactly.
We can't preach that enough.
Yeah, exactly. And the bigger they get, the more dangerous it gets to do, not only for the tree, but also for the person. They're a lot heavier than you think they are. So getting somebody out there with the proper equipment is also a really good shout. Absolutely.
Right. So trees are great to increase property value, but from a practical standpoint, they're great to provide shade during those hot summer days in Georgia. So we hope this video was helpful so that you can keep these beautiful trees and still keep your beautiful lawn.